They say the first sign of madness is talking to yourself. For the last 6 months, I'd been having full-blown conversations with my own reflection in the dark glass of my monitor. My name is Sunny, and I was starting to believe I was genuinely losing my mind. As the lead engineer on Project Phoenix, the most critical platform overhaul in our company's history, I was at the helm of a ship that kept springing catastrophic leaks moments before it was supposed to set sail. My code I had written and rewritten, code I knew was as solid as bedrock, kept inexplicably failing right before every single deployment. It was a pattern of professional humiliation so precise, so rhythmic, it felt like a curse. And through it all there was Valerie, my manager, my champion, my most vocal supporter. She was the one in the late-night crisis meetings, one hand on my shoulder, her voice a soothing balm of corporate empathy. She'd say things like, "I know the pressure is immense, Sonny, but we have faith in you." To the executive team, she'd present a different narrative, one of heroic leadership. She'd say, "Sonny's a brilliant engineer, but he's struggling with the scale of this project. I'm providing close support and managing the fallout to keep us on track." She was documenting my declining performance with the meticulous care of a historian, even as she was, to my face, my staunchest ally. I was drowning, and she was the one holding my head under the water while telling everyone else she was teaching me to swim. The self-doubt was an acid, eating away at the foundations of my confidence, a confidence built over 2 decades of shipping flawless code. I started triple-checking my work, then quadruple-checking. I ran my own unit tests, then I wrote new tests to test the tests. I was sleeping in 3-hour bursts, my dreams filled with cascading error messages and the placid, disappointed face of our CTO. I was a ghost haunting my own life, fueled by stale coffee and the mounting fear that I was, simply, a fraud who had finally been found out. Then last night it happened. It was 3 in the morning, the office a silent, refrigerated tomb. Another deployment had failed, another frantic rollback. Another night of me, alone, staring into the abyss of the command line, searching for the ghost in the machine. But this time, I looked somewhere different. I stopped looking at my code and started looking at the space around my code. The deployment server logs, the commit hooks, the automated scripts that stitched everything together. And there it was. It was tiny, no more than 3 lines of shell script, so elegant in its malevolence that I almost had to admire it. It was a whisper, not a shout. A whisper that ran moments after my final git push, triggered by the commit action itself. It didn't break things in a loud, obvious way. It was more insidious. It used a simple sed command, a stream editor, to find and replace key variable names in the final compiled code. database_URL would become database_URI, a single, almost unnoticeable character change that would cause the entire application to lose its connection to its data. API_SESecret_key would become API_SESecret_key. Subtle, vicious, designed to pass all the pre-flight checks and only fail when the application was under full load, in the most spectacular and public way possible. My blood went cold. This wasn't a bug, this was a stiletto, slipped between the ribs of my work with surgical precision. My hands started to shake, not with fear, but with a sudden surging clarity. I wasn't losing my mind. I was being haunted. I dug deeper, pulling the server access logs for the exact nanosecond the script had executed. There was an IP address, an internal one. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I cross-referenced it with the company's network allocation table. My heart wasn't pounding. It was unnervingly still, a dead weight in my chest. The result came back, stark and clear on the screen. Terminal, v.valerie-mgr, floor, 12. Office, 1201, Valerie. It all clicked into place, the last 6 months replaying in my mind not as a series of failures, but as a calculated campaign of psychological warfare, her support, her concern, her meticulous documentation of my decline. She wasn't my manager, she was my saboteur. She was a firefighter who brought her own gasoline, creating the very blazes she would then take credit for putting out. The fires were my reputation, my career, my sanity. I haven't said a word to anyone. I didn't storm into her office. I didn't send a panicked email to HR. The rage I expected to feel never came. It was replaced by something else, something cold and crystalline and far more dangerous: focus. The engineer in me took over. She had introduced a catastrophic bug into the system, my system, and it was my job to patch it. So I've spent the rest of the night writing a counter script. It's a work of art. The next time she tries it, her little sed command will find itself in a sandbox, unable to touch a single file. Her sabotage will be blocked, her session data captured, and the complete, irrefutable proof, a detailed forensic report, complete with historical logs of her previous attacks, will be compiled, packaged, and emailed directly to the entire executive leadership team. She thinks she's playing chess with a pawn. She's about to find out she's been poking a bear, and the bear has just learned how to code. The drive home that night, after the discovery, was a strange and silent film. The city lights smeared across my windshield, but I wasn't seeing them. I was seeing conversations, meetings, moments from the past 6 months, all recontextualized through the lens of betrayal. The hollow feeling in my gut wasn't fear or anger anymore. It was the vast empty space left behind when 6 months of manufactured reality get sucked out of a room. I had been living in a house of cards she'd built around me, and the slightest breeze of truth had flattened it. I kept the radio off. The only sound was the hum of the tires on the asphalt. I remembered the kickoff meeting for Project Phoenix. We were in the big boardroom with the panoramic windows. The project was my baby. I'd spent a year architecting it, a complete modernization of our company's ancient creaking logistics platform. It was the kind of legacy project that could make a career. Valerie had just been promoted to director of engineering above me. She stood at the front of the room, radiating confidence. She pointed to me and said, "Sonny is the architect of our future. His vision is what will carry us through." I remember feeling a sense of pride, a sense of partnership. Now replaying that memory, I could see the faint glint in her eyes. It wasn't admiration, it was appraisal. She wasn't looking at a partner. She was looking at a resource to be consumed, a ladder. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as another memory surfaced. The first major glitch. It was 2 months into development, our first milestone deployment to the staging environment. It failed spectacularly. Data corruption, cascading errors. It was chaos. I remember the frantic all-nighter, the team huddled around a bank of monitors, faces pale in the blue light. I was in the zone, tracing dependencies, digging through logs. Valerie was there, but she wasn't contributing to the solution. She was managing the perception. She brought coffee, she ordered pizzas. She kept patting people on the back, and every 30 minutes she'd step out to update the stakeholders. We found the issue around 4 a.m., a misconfigured environment variable, so simple, so stupidly easy to miss. But how had it been misconfigured? My build scripts were immutable. They pulled directly from a secure vault. It made no sense. At the time, I chalked it up to cosmic bad luck, a gremlin in the system. I was too exhausted to think otherwise. The next day, an email went out from the CTO to the whole department, praising Valerie's calm and decisive leadership during the Phoenix staging crisis. She'd forwarded it to me with a note, "Team effort. You were the real hero, Sonny. Get some rest." I had read it as camaraderie. Now I see it for what it was, a victory lap on a racetrack she herself had salted. The most painful memory, the one that made my stomach clench, was the meeting where she put me on a performance improvement plan. The PP, the corporate equivalent of a death sentence. We were in her glass-walled office. She had a folder in front of her, filled with printouts. She slid it across the table. Her voice was a masterpiece of feigned reluctance and deep concern. "Sonny, I don't want to be having this conversation," she began, "but we've had 4 major deployment failures. The executive team is losing confidence. I've defended you, I've buffered you, but my ability to do that is finite. She opened the folder. It was a timeline of my failures. Each one was meticulously documented with dates, times, and the business impact. Every fire she had secretly started was now being presented to me as evidence of my arson. She pointed to charts showing project delays. We're 6 weeks behind schedule, Sonny. The burn rate on this project is astronomical. I remember just staring at the papers, my mind a fog of confusion and shame. How could this be happening? My work had never been anything but impeccable. Was I burning out? Was I just not good enough anymore? This isn't to punish you, she had said, her eyes boring into mine. This is a support plan. I'm going to work with you day in and day out to get you back on track. Your success is my success. The gaslighting was so total, so absolute, that I almost thanked her. I walked out of that office feeling like a man who'd been told his house was burning down by the person holding the empty can of kerosene. I doubted myself, not her. Her manipulation was a high art, a perfect crime against a person's self-worth. This train of thought brought me to Leo. Leo was a junior developer, fresh out of university, with a mind like a steel trap. I'd seen his potential in the interview and pushed to hire him. I took him under my wing, mentored him on the complexities of our legacy systems, and taught him the architectural principles behind Phoenix. The kid was a sponge. He absorbed everything and came back with brilliant questions. He was my one bright spot in the growing gloom. Valerie had noticed. She'd made a point of having one-on-ones with him, ostensibly to monitor the progress of our new talent. But Leo was loyal. He'd come to me after these meetings, looking troubled. He told me, "She asks weird questions, Sonny. She asks if you seem stressed, if you're delegating enough. Last week she asked me if I felt I was having to pick up the slack on the core logic." She was planting seeds of doubt, trying to turn my own protege into a spy, another source for her file on my incompetence. I told her, "You're the only reason any of this works," Leo had said, his jaw tight. I told her, "I've learned more from you in 3 months than I did in 4 years of college." Her attempt to create a wedge had only strengthened our alliance. He saw her for what she was long before I did. I'd dismissed it as him being young and cynical about management. Turns out he just had better vision. I pulled into my driveway, the engine cutting out and leaving a profound silence. I sat there for a long time, staring at my own front door. Inside was my family, my life, the world I was working to protect. This wasn't just about a job anymore. It wasn't about code. It was a fundamental attack on my identity. I am a builder. I create order out of chaos. It's who I am. Valerie's strategy was to inject chaos into my order, to make me believe that chaos was my own creation. That was her mistake. She underestimated me. She saw a tired, middle-aged engineer, easy to sideline. She didn't see the man who methodically built the systems she was now trying to exploit. My resolve solidified in that silence. This wasn't going to be a messy, emotional confrontation. I wasn't going to sink to her level. This was an engineering problem. Valerie was a security vulnerability, a malicious actor with privileged access. You don't argue with a security threat. You don't try to reason with it. You isolate it, you neutralize it, and you ensure it can never ever harm the system again. I walked into my house, went straight to my home office, and I began to write the perfect patch. The plan I was formulating in my head wasn't born of rage. It was a product of pure cold architectural logic. Valerie's leverage was her position of authority and her skill at social manipulation. My leverage was deeper. It was foundational. I hadn't just written the code for Project Phoenix. I had designed and built the entire ecosystem it lived in. The continuous integration and deployment pipeline, the logging aggregators, the automated testing harnesses, they were all mine. I knew where every digital wire was run, where every secret door was hidden. My real leverage wasn't just knowing she was the saboteur, it was that I owned the very stage on which she was performing her little play. She assumed the server logs were ephemeral, that they were overwritten or archived into some digital black hole where no one would ever look. She was wrong. As a systems architect, I am paranoid by nature. I had configured a secondary, off-site write-only backup for all critical logs years ago. It was my disaster recovery plan, a failsafe against catastrophic server failure. I never imagined the disaster I'd be recovering from would be a person. Valerie thought she was erasing her footprints, but she was just pressing them into wet concrete. I had poured myself. With this knowledge, building the counter script became an act of craftsmanship. I called it Cerberus, the mythical three-headed hound that guarded the underworld. My creation would have three distinct functions, working in perfect harmony. The first head of Cerberus was the warden. Its job was to protect the integrity of the code. I couldn't just block her script, she would notice the block and change her tactics. I had to be more subtle. I created a honeypot. I wrapped my final build process in a lightweight virtualized container. When my commit script ran, it would create this tiny isolated bubble universe for the code to exist in for a few minutes. When Valerie's script came sniffing, it wouldn't be touching the real files. It would be touching perfect copies inside the bubble. The warden would allow her script to run, to perform its malicious substitutions, and to report success back to her. She would think her sabotage had worked, but the moment her script finished, the bubble would simply evaporate, leaving the original, untainted code completely unharmed. The deployment would proceed with the correct functional code. She'd get a success notification and be utterly mystified. The second head was the scribe. This was the witness. While the warden was engaging her script in the honeypot, the scribe would be recording everything. It would perform a full forensic capture of her session, her IP address, her machine's MAC address, the exact time of connection, the full unedited text of the script she executed, and a snapshot of the modified but fake code. It would record her disconnection. It would be a perfect digital photograph of her with her hand in the cookie jar. But the scribe's job didn't end there. Once the live evidence was captured, it had a second task. It would reach back into that deep log archive I'd built, using the new evidence as a key, her IP, her terminal ID. It would hunt for every other instance of her activity, timed just moments after my previous failed deployments. It would pull the logs for each of the last 6 months of failures, correlating her presence with every single one. It would weave a tapestry of her betrayal, thread by undeniable thread. The third and final head was the herald. This was the instrument of judgment. Once the scribe had compiled its report, the herald's job was to deliver the message. It wouldn't use our company's internal email system, which she could potentially block or intercept. I configured it to use a secure third-party transactional email service via an API, with credentials stored in an encrypted vault she had no access to. The herald would take all the evidence gathered by the scribe, the live session capture, the historical log analysis, the timeline of sabotage, and package it into a single cleanly formatted non-editable PDF file. The file would have a simple damning cover page, Project Phoenix, a post-mortem on internal sabotage, compiled timestamp, author, System Integrity Monitor. The herald would then attach this PDF to an email with a high-priority flag and a subject line designed to bypass filters and command immediate attention, URgent, active security breach, and data integrity failure in Project Phoenix. The recipient list was the final crucial detail. It wouldn't go to just one person, it would go to everyone who mattered. Our CEO Robert Vance, our CTO Marcus Sterling, the head of human resources Cynthia Mays, and our general counsel David Chen. It would be an atomic bomb of truth, dropped directly into the laps of the entire executive leadership team. To ensure the final piece of the puzzle was perfect, I needed to confirm the executive email distribution list. The one on the company intranet was often out of date as roles shifted. I needed the real one. This is where Leo came in. I called him on his personal cell. "Leo, it's Sonny. Got a weird question for you." "Hey, Sonny. Anything. You sound different. Everything okay?" His concern was immediate and genuine. "Everything's fine, kid. Just tying up a loose end. Listen, you work pretty closely with Sterling's executive assistant on those performance metric reports, right?" "Yeah, every other week." "Why?" I need you to confirm the current distribution list for the C-suite leadership, I said, my voice level. The one they use for red alert level communiques. The intranet is showing an old address for Vance. I'm finalizing some documentation for Phoenix and I need it to go to the right people. Can you get that for me without making a big deal out of it? There was a pause on the line. I could hear the gears turning in his head. This was an unusual request and he knew it, but he also trusted me. Yeah, Sonny, I can do that. I have a meeting with her this afternoon to go over the Q3 numbers. I'll just ask her to double-check the list for my own report. She won't think twice about it. Good man, I said. And Leo, keep this between us. You don't even have to say it, he replied, his voice firm. I'll text you the list later today. After I hung up, I leaned back in my chair. The script was written, the trap was armed, the messenger was programmed. All the pieces were on the board, positioned for a checkmate she would never see coming. Now all I had to do was push my next commit and wait for the queen to make her move. The funny thing about competence is that it's not just about building things. It's also about knowing exactly how they can be broken, and if necessary, how to build a better, smarter trap. The day of the next deployment deadline arrived with a palpable tension in the air. It was a Thursday, the designated go live for the new customer onboarding module of Project Phoenix. This was a big one, a feature the sales team had been promising for months. The pressure from the top was immense. Another failure would be more than just embarrassing. It would start to affect Q4 revenue projections. Valerie was a whirlwind of micromanagement, her concern dialed up to a theatrical intensity. She hovered near my desk, a coffee cup in her hand, her brow furrowed in a performance of deep thought. Sonny, are we absolutely sure this one is stable? She asked. Her voice just loud enough for the junior developers nearby to hear. We need a win here. The whole team needs it. My neck is on the line too, you know. I'm shielding you guys from as much of the executive heat as I can. I just nodded, my eyes fixed on my screen. The code is solid, Valerie. The tests are all green. It's ready. I kept my voice flat, professional, a gray rock against which her waves of feigned anxiety could crash. Inside, my heart was beating a slow, steady rhythm, the calm of a man who has already seen the end of the movie. At 7 p.m., the official commit window opened. I ran my final checks, packaged the code and typed the git command to push it to the main branch. Git push origin main. I hit enter. Then I leaned back and sent a message to the team's group chat. Final code for the onboarding module has been pushed, ready for automated deployment. This was it. The bait was in the water. Instead of packing up and going home as I usually would, I stayed. I dimmed the lights in my cubicle and opened 2 terminal windows on my secondary monitor. One was tailing the standard deployment logs, the familiar scroll of green text that signified a healthy build. The other was different. It was a direct feed from Cerberus, my silent guardian. Right now it was empty, just a single patient blinking cursor. Status, Cerberus initialized. Awaiting trigger. The minutes ticked by. 10, 15. The automated deployment pipeline was chugging along, compiling, testing, preparing. Any moment now. Valerie always waited until the build was in its final stages, the point of no return. It was the moment of maximum damage. I took a slow sip of cold coffee, my eyes glued to the screen. Then it happened. The Cerberus log sprang to life. Trigger, inbound connection detected from 10.0.1.42 v.valerie-mgr. My breath caught in my throat. It was her. Right on schedule. Warden honeypot environment activated. Presenting decoy file system. Warden malicious script execution detected. Type said _replace. Warden allowing execution within sandbox. Real assets are secure. I could almost picture her in her office, a self-satisfied smirk on her face as she ran her little script, thinking she was once again kneecapping me at the finish line. SC-RIBE, forensic capture initiated. Recording session data. SC-RIBE, session recorded successfully. Warden malicious script terminated. Sandbox dissolving. The log paused for a fraction of a second. The standard deployment log on the other screen continued its happy green march, completely oblivious. The sabotage had been contained and neutralized without a single hiccup. Now came the second act. Cerberus, initiating historical log analysis, correlating 10.0.1.42 with previous deployment failures. A stream of text scrolled by, faster than I could read. Correlation match found failure, _event _ID, 734. Timestamp 6 months ago. Correlation match found failure, _event _ID, 791. Timestamp 5 months ago. Correlation match found failure, _event _ID, 812. Timestamp 4 months ago. Correlation match found failure, _event _ID, 855. Timestamp 3 months ago. Correlation match found failure, _event _ID, 901. Timestamp 1 month ago. Correlation match found failure, _event _ID, 924. Timestamp 2 weeks ago. It had found all of them, every single one. A perfect, unbroken chain of deceit. Scribe forensic report compiled, 14 pages, hashing for integrity. Herald initiating secure delivery protocol. Herald connecting to external mail API. Herald connection established. Herald composing message for distribution list. Executive _leadership _DL. Herald subject, urgent active security breach and data integrity failure in Project Phoenix. Herald attaching report, Phoenix _sabotage _forensics.pdf. Herald sending message, my heart was hammering against my ribs now, this was the point of no return. Herald confirmation, email sent successfully. Delivery to all recipients confirmed by server. A moment later, a new message popped up in the team chat from the automated system. Deployment of customer onboarding module to production was successful. It was followed by a flurry of celebratory emojis from the rest of the team. I leaned back, a slow breath escaping my lips. It was done. A few minutes passed in complete silence. Then I heard a sound from down the hall, a door being thrown open. Hurried footsteps. I peered over the top of my cubicle wall just in time to see Valerie bolt from her office, her face the color of chalk. She had her phone clamped to her ear, her expression one of pure, unadulterated panic. She must have just gotten the delivery confirmation on the deployment, realized her sabotage had failed, and then, a moment later, seen the email from Cerberus land in her own inbox, a carbon copy of the one sent to the entire C-suite. She didn't even look in my direction. She power-walked towards the elevators, still talking frantically into her phone. The trap had snapped shut, the bomb had gone off, and I was sitting there, just another engineer, my screen showing nothing but a successfully completed job, the quietest coup in corporate history. The next morning, the office air was thick with a weird static energy. It was the kind of silence that's louder than noise. People were gathered in small, hushed clusters around the coffee machine, whispering, and then falling silent whenever someone from management walked by. No one was looking at me, but I could feel the sidelong glances. I was the center of a storm, but I was standing in the eye of it, untouched. Valerie's office door, usually open, was firmly shut. Around 9:30, my personal phone buzzed with a message on a secure app. It was Leo. Sonny, what in the hell did you do? The message was followed by another. Sterling just walked past my desk. His face looked like he'd been chewing on nails. They pulled Valerie into the main boardroom with Cynthia from HR and David Chen from legal about an hour ago. She looked like she was walking to her own execution. I smiled faintly. Just fixed a bug, Leo. A few minutes later, another message from him. This one made my eyebrows shoot up. A few of us from the core Phoenix team are talking. Me, Sarah from QA, Mike from database admin. We know something big is going down, and we're pretty sure it involves you and Valerie. Just so you know, if they try to sweep this under the rug, or worse, pin any of this on you, we walk, all of us. We've already got our resumes updated. Competence isn't cheap, and they're about to find out what it cost to lose it. This was the talent exodus. It wasn't just my fight anymore. The silent frustration of the team, who had been working under the shadow of these failures just as I had, was about to become a powerful bargaining chip. They knew who did the real work. At precisely 10:15 a.m., my desk phone rang. It was an extension I didn't recognize. Sunny, a clipped, no-nonsense voice said. It was Cynthia Mays, the head of HR. Could you please join us in boardroom C? We'd like to ask you a few questions. Her tone was studiously neutral, but I could hear the stress underneath it. Of course, Cynthia. On my way, I said, my voice calm. I stood up, straightened my shirt, and walked towards the boardroom. It felt like the longest walk of my life. Every eye in the office followed me. I pushed open the heavy glass door. The room was cold. Seated at the long mahogany table were Cynthia, David Chen from legal, and at the head of the table, Marcus Sterling, the CTO. His face was grim, set like stone, and across from them, looking small and utterly broken, was Valerie. Her usual power suit looked rumpled. Her makeup was slightly smeared, and her eyes were red-rimmed and darting around the room, looking for an escape that wasn't there. She saw me, and a flicker of something, desperation, maybe rage, crossed her face. She decided to try one last, desperate gambit. As soon as I sat down, before Sterling could even speak, she launched into a prepared speech, her voice trembling, but laced with a saccharine attempt at concern. Marcus, Cynthia, she started, gesturing towards me. I am so glad Sonny is here. I think there's been a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. Sonny has been under an immense amount of pressure. We all have. He's been working so hard, such long hours. It's completely understandable that he might have misconfigured some of the new monitoring tools he's been building. This reports his script sent out. It's a false positive, a cry for help, maybe. His system is clearly generating erroneous data. This isn't malice. It's a symptom of burnout. I've been worried about him for months. She was trying to use the very narrative she had constructed against me as her final shield. She was painting me as unstable, paranoid, my own tools turning against me in a fit of stress-induced fantasy. It was a brilliant, disgusting move. She was trying to turn my proof into a symptom of my insanity. For a second, I felt a flash of the old self-doubt. Could she possibly pull this off? Marcus Sterling didn't even look at her. His eyes were locked on me. He slid a thick printed document across the table. It was the PDF my script had generated. He tapped the cover page. Sonny, he said, his voice a low rumble. The report your script generated last night, it is thorough. He flipped through a few pages, his expression unreadable. It details an IP address, specific command logs, and timestamps that correlate perfectly with every single failed deployment of Project Phoenix for the past 6 months. Is this report accurate? This was the moment. The entire game hinged on this one question. Valerie was holding her breath, her eyes pleading with me, daring me, trying to will me into collapsing. I looked directly at Sterling, bypassing her completely. I let a bead of silence hang in the air, then I gave a single firm nod. Yes, Mr. Sterling, I said, my voice clear and steady. It is 100% accurate. Valerie let out a small choked sound, a sort of half-laugh, half-sob. But it can't be. It's a mistake. Marcus, you have to listen to me. Sterling finally turned his gaze on her, and it was like watching the sun go out. The manufactured warmth he usually projected was gone, replaced by an Arctic cold. Valerie, please, he said, his voice cutting through her protests like glass. Stop. We spent the last 2 hours with the network security team. We cross-referenced the VPN logs and the physical keycard access records for your office on the nights in question. The forensics are undeniable. The commands came from your terminal, using your credentials, at the exact moments the sabotage occurred. He leaned back, his face a mask of profound disappointment. You're a firefighter who brought her own gasoline. The silence that followed was absolute. Valerie seemed to shrink in her chair, the last of her fight draining away. The intricate web of lies she had woven for months had been incinerated in a single moment of unarguable, automated truth. Sterling turned back to me. I owe you and frankly your entire team a profound apology, Sonny. We failed you. We put our trust in a manager and we failed to manage that manager. We listened to reports of your declining performance without ever questioning the source. That is a failure of leadership. My failure. He took a deep breath. As for you, Valerie, he said, his voice shifting back to a formal, rigid tone, your employment with this company is terminated, effective immediately. Please gather your personal belongings from your office. Security will escort you from the building. Valerie just stared at him, her mouth slightly agape. It was over, and she had never even seen the blade coming. Sterling gestured for Valerie to leave with Cynthia and David. As she walked past me, she wouldn't meet my eyes. She looked like a stranger. After the door closed, leaving just the two of us in the vast silent room, Sterling let out a long, weary sigh. He looked at me, a new, frank assessment in his eyes. That was an extraordinary piece of work, Sonny. Not just the counterscript, but the fact that you did it so quietly. No drama, just a result. He paused. Valerie's position, Director of Engineering, is now vacant. It's yours if you want it, along with a substantial signing bonus to acknowledge the damage done here and a public apology to the entire department for what you were put through. This was the victory, the vindication, the job, the money, the public clearing of my name, everything I was supposed to want. But as I sat there, I thought about Leo's message. I thought about the team that had been ready to walk out for me. A title wasn't the point. I took a moment before answering, choosing my words with the same care I'd used to write my code. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Sterling. I truly do. But a title isn't what this was ever about. It was about the work and the environment to do the work properly. I leaned forward slightly. Let's talk about what the engineering team really needs to succeed. It needs trust. It needs the resources you were paying Valerie to absorb, but that never made it to us. And it needs the good people who were pushed out or were ready to leave because of the toxic culture she created. I looked him straight in the eye, leveraging the power he had just handed me. I will accept the position on two conditions. First, we make immediate offers to rehire the two senior engineers who left 3 months ago, citing management friction. We need them back. Second, I get to pick my own team leads, based on merit, not politics. Starting with Leo as the new lead for the Phoenix core team. Sterling stared at me for a long moment, a slow smile spreading across his face. It was the first genuine smile I had seen from him all day. Done, he said, extending a hand across the table. Welcome to the job, Director. It sounds like you've already started. A few months have passed since that day. I'm sitting in my new office, the one that used to be Valerie's. It has a better view. The fishbowl glass wall has been replaced with a frosted one that offers a bit of privacy. It's quieter now. The frantic, performative energy that used to radiate from this office is gone, replaced by a calm, productive hum from the team floor outside. Project Phoenix launched on time and on budget. It was flawless. The sales team is ecstatic, the clients are happy, and the company's stock saw a healthy bump. It turns out that when you remove the person who is actively setting fires, the fire department has a much easier job. Leo is thriving as a team lead. He's a natural leader, empathetic and fiercely intelligent. He commands the respect of his team because he earned it, not because a title was bestowed upon him. The two engineers I insisted we rehire came back, albeit with significant raises, which I made sure Sterling approved without a blink. Our team is stronger than it has ever been. We are a collective of builders again, focused on the work, not on watching our backs. The whole culture has shifted from one of fear and politics to one of collaboration and trust. I didn't just get revenge. I performed a root canal on the organization, removing the decay so the healthy part could thrive. There's a new plaque on my door. It says Sonny, Director of Engineering. But the real trophy isn't the title or the corner office. It's looking out at the team floor and seeing people working without fear. Whiteboards covered in complex diagrams, headphones on, deep in the flow of creation. It's the quiet satisfaction of seeing a well-oiled machine doing what it was designed to do. That is the foundation I fought to protect. So that's what happened. A manager, a company, they thought my loyalty was a weakness they could exploit. They mistook my quiet diligence for passivity. They forgot that real loyalty, for people like us, isn't to a person or a line on an org chart. It's to the work itself. It's to the integrity of the system, to building things that are elegant, functional, and strong. And when someone comes along and tries to corrupt that for their own personal gain, you don't have to get loud. You don't have to get mad. You just have to get methodical. You treat them for what they are, a bug in the code, and you write the perfect patch to remove them. Have you ever had to deal with a boss or a colleague who created the very problems they then took credit for solving? Let me know your story in the comments below. I think it's important for people to know they aren't alone in these situations. And if you found this story satisfying, do me a favor and hit that like button, share it with someone who might need to see that competence can, and does, win out over chaos. And of course, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more stories. Thanks for listening.